All right. Hey, everybody. It's Laura Ellen Christian with AGE-u-cate Training Institute. We are so excited to be with you today. I'm going to wait just 1 minute, let the clock roll over to 2 o'clock, and let everyone filter in here for our gathering for today. And while we're waiting, I will share that this is our third virtual road trip for the year with AGE-u-cate. And this year, we were very intentional about doing our webinars every other month because we are really focusing on bringing solutions to challenges that are out there connected to the aging services industry. And we all know that to tackle challenges takes a lot of time. And you can't focus on too many challenges at the same time. Maybe not even multiple ones, maybe just one. So that was our intention there. So we are in the month of June and on to our third topic of trying to bring some solutions to you wherever you're sitting in your role and your organization, your state, or even your country. So it is 2 o'clock and we will get started. Our past two webinars connected on first, staffing, recruitment, and retention, right? A very hot topic that continues to be out there for all of us. We then moved over to a conversation on elevating engagement professionals. All of those you can find on AGE-u-cate's YouTube channel if you want to go back if those topics are interesting to you and you missed us the last go round. But today we are going to focus on compassionate leadership. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Penny Cook, who is our guest today for some conversation around this important topic. Penny Cook is the president and CEO of the Pioneer Network, a fantastic organization that really broke ground in culture change in the aging services industry. And Penny is a great leader of that organization. And exciting for them is their joining with the Greenhouse Project recently. So Penny, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And please share a little bit about Pioneer, your connection with the Greenhouse Project, and just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Laura Ellen, and welcome to all of you who are joining us today. Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here to talk about compassionate leadership, but also to tell you a little bit about Pioneer Network and what the future is going to bring with our new alliance with the Greenhouse Project. Pioneer Network has been around for 25 years, and we're a nonprofit that started 25 years ago to really work to change the culture of aging. And as many of you know, 25 years ago, for residential living and senior living and long-term care, one of the only choices people had was nursing homes. So our founders really thought that if we could change the culture of care and support in nursing homes, we would be able to work to change this negative culture of aging that we have in our society. And so we've done that for the past 25 years through networking, providing a place where people can learn from each other through education and training, and also through advocacy. And along the way, we have what I call these sister organizations. And the Greenhouse Project has been one of those sister organizations. They've really shared our values of person-directed living. They've shared our principles about knowing each person, relationships mattering, all of those very person-centered principles and values that we have. And we've done a lot of projects and work together. And one of the things that we've realized, especially over the past 2.5 years, is that it truly is all about partnerships, that we really need to be working together more and more to actually advance, what our goals are. And so we decided that we could actually be better together than we are alone. And we have decided to create this alliance bringing together Pioneer Network and the Greenhouse Project. And what this really allows us to do is this work of cultural transformation, no matter where somebody lives. So whether it is a nursing home, assisted living, memory care, maybe even PACE programs and other different settings that we don't even know about yet, we can really bring this education, training, and also consultation. And so I think it's important to know that, this isn't just about the greenhouse model. It's really so much more. It's so much broader than that. And Pioneer Network is coming together to bring our very inclusive network to this alliance. So we're so excited about the future. And I know we'll be talking about this later, but the Greenhouse Project is co-hosting our July conference with us too. So we just think this is going to be a great partnership. We're so happy that AGE-u-cate has been one of our partners as well.
Yeah, that's great. And you hit on a lot of buzzwords that really take us into this topic of compassionate leadership. So, talking about relationships, partnerships, being inclusive in conversation. I think there's so many leadership styles out there, as we know. We can all think back to a leader that's really influenced us and has had a positive impact, not only on us professionally, but personally. And to me, I think that really connects over to what compassionate leadership is all about. Another word you said is culture, right? Of leaders really creating that culture of compassion, of making sure there are positive intentions, making sure that you are expressing real concern for others around those positive intentions. So Penny, I'll kind of kick it off and ask you, how do you define compassionate leadership, and why do you think it's important for leaders in our industry?
Well, I think that's a great question, so that we all kind of are on the same playing field when we start this conversation. And I'm going to answer the second question first about the importance. I think this is an important concept anywhere in any field, but in particular, the world of aging services and healthcare, where we want and expect our team members to have compassion themselves for the people that they work with. So I have a pretty simple definition of compassionate leadership. I really believe that it's a style of leading that anyone can have, where you want the people you work with to have their best lives, and you know that you have a role in supporting them to do that. And I think if we look at it that way, of that best life, and we look at what compassion really means, compassion is really, and you said it, Laura Ellen, that care and concern for others. It means giving up the idea of leading with control and instead guiding people and walking with them. It means less talking and more listening. It means more observation of your team members. It's ensuring that people have clear expectations of their roles, and almost more importantly, providing them with the tools and resources to do their jobs well. So I just think about, compassionate leadership to me is really based on that idea of compassion. And in a sense, and you mentioned this too, it's what we all probably can think about when we think about those leaders in our own lives that have had a really important role.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yes, you said so many things. My mind is racing, Penny. But one thing that you said that I really loved in the very beginning, you said you're supporting people through their best life, or something to that effect, right?
Their best life. Yeah.
And I really love that. And to me, as in my journey of, and it's a journey, right? I don't think there's ever an end road of how you're evolving and being a compassionate leader. So in my journey, one of the big ahas for me is that transition to, you're supporting people in their best life, right? You're not directing people in the life you want them to lead based on your business or your role, right? So you're really transitioning into a partner for people to help them and to support them in their own journey. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, so much so. And Laura Ellen, I was just thinking as you said that, I think what's so important is about that best life approach to it too. And I think we all learned this over the course of the past 2.5 years with the pandemic, is that interplay between the professional and personal.
Mhm.
So when we talk about best life, we know that there are things that come from our non-professional life, into our professional life. And we really need to look at that as we're supporting people that are on our team.
That's right. Yeah. That has definitely come to the forefront, through the last couple of years more than ever of that balance of just life, and how it all merges together. Well, Penny, can you share maybe an example of compassionate leadership in action, maybe something you've seen or something you've experienced through your professional journey or personal journey?
Sure. Well, I'm going to share a couple because one is personal to me, but then I want to share another one that has just always stuck with me. The one that's personal to me is really early on in my career, in a supervisory position. And I will tell you, when I first took this role, I saw it more as a traditional supervisor. Now I'm going to talk about it kind of as a leader. So I was leading a team of 10 people that were paid and many, many, many more volunteers. And there was one role that they all had. And the paid team members then had additional roles. But I was finding that I was always kind of giving a pass to our volunteers if they weren't always completing all aspects of the roles because they were volunteers, right? I was just happy that they were volunteering with us and they each brought a different skill set to this role anyway. But with the other paid team members, I had pretty high expectations, not any higher than I had of myself, but pretty high expectations that they were going to do all aspects of their jobs well, which is pretty naive because we don't usually, any of us have that, right? And there were some core positions or some elements of the position that they all needed to complete, but they had so many kind of other duties as assigned. And I had this one team member that was really struggling. And there were definitely things she excelled at, but there were other things that she really struggled with. And I was always kind of focused on those things that she struggled with. And nothing was really helping. It wasn't helping our relationship. It wasn't helping kind of her performance. I was definitely not helping her to have her best life. So I decided to do things a little bit differently. I decided to really listen to what she wanted, to what she was interested in doing, to what was important to her. And I began to observe. And what I realized is those things that she was so good at, that she excelled in, that she brought passion to, were things that other people on my team did not excel at. She was really the only one, and I didn't possess those skills either. And then what I realized is the things that she was challenged by, other people were really good at. And I thought, okay, I had an aha moment. Why don't I just look at this truly as a team? And we all don't bring the same skill sets, and that's a good thing. So what I really focused on is what she brought to the position and really tried to foster that, and then had other people take over the things that they were good at, that she was challenged by. And what I found was this actually created a beautiful team. It ended up being, a situation where she was so much happier. I was so much happier, and the team was as well. And so that really taught me a lot early in my career about some of these elements of compassionate leadership, even though, that wasn't a term that years ago we used, but I think it fits in nicely, But then there was this other time where I observed, and she was one of the most compassionate leaders that I've seen. And I observed some of the things she did, and she was a nursing home administrator. And just as an aside, what I was always so impressed with, and I think it plays into this conversation, she knew all of the people who worked in her community. Not only that, a lot of them were from an immigrant community. She knew where they were from. She knew their families. And she always asked an interesting interview question. What are some of the passions and hobbies that you have outside of your work that you could bring to our community? That actually began right in the interview process of having her see people as whole people, that they had other lives outside of what they were going to be offering professionally. But anyway, she told me this story because she was embarrassed by it, and she also was so upset by it. It was kind of cathartic for her to share this with me. The nursing home that she led was truly a changed home and was very vibrant. And one of the things that made it so vibrant is they had a number of animals that lived in the home. They had residents who were very much supported to bring their animals in or even to adopt new animals. And she also had a lot of staff members on all shifts who would bring their pets in. And so it was a home that was full of animals, very vibrant. And she was hiring a nurse. And she was so excited about this nurse because she thought she would be a wonderful addition to the community. So she hired her. On the nurse's first day, though, one of the things the administrator realized is she was deathly afraid of dogs. And you can only imagine how that would be in this community that was very dog friendly. Well, instead of blaming the nurse or being defensive or anything else, the administrator felt horrible because she felt that she must not have explained during the interview process how animal oriented this community was. So again, instead of like being, just saying, well, you have to work through this, or, well, you have to deal with this, she said, what can we do to make you feel more comfortable? Let's take these first 2 weeks, you're not going to come and work with the residents yet. How can we make you feel more comfortable? Is it, getting to know the dogs outside? Is it getting to know the residents with their dog? Is it spending some time at, a local animal shelter? What can we do? Because we really want you to be here. To me, that's compassionate leadership. That's showing that care and concern for somebody and making sure that together you can figure out a way to work through this.
Mm-hmm. Those are beautiful stories, Penny, and we're getting some chats here echoing the same. I love those two examples of, you as a leader, and I can connect with that of, you're not trying to fit your team into a mold, right? You're trying to know your goal, right? As a leader, you've got to know your vision and your goal, but you've also got to know your team and how everyone fits to that, and not vice versa, right? So everyone has things that they can contribute to the team, and it's up to you as a leader to help navigate and put that puzzle together, if you will, right? Of getting everybody in the right seat or connected with their right skill set. So I love that example. With my team, I used to use the thought of oh my gosh, I'm not going to remember the word now. Maybe you can help me. Where kind of everything aligns, right? A Venn diagram. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, yay. A Venn diagram of thinking about, the business goals, what the passion is of a person, and then their skill set, right? And that's their sweet spot. And that's what you're doing as a leader, is trying to figure all of that out so that person can operate for the most part in their sweet spot. We all know that you can't always be in your sweet spot all the time. That's part of just a job and how we have to contribute. But that's a part of being a compassionate leader, is helping your team find that sweet spot, right? That connects to the business, to them as who they are as a person, and what their skill sets are. So it reminded me of that when you were sharing that story.
Oh, so much so, Laura Ellen. And I think that this is so important to talk about right now when we are so challenged by workforce issues, is really, I know that in your past road shows, road trips, you've been talking about this, but I think that we need to look at compassionate leadership as we look towards ensuring that we are recruiting people into environments where they can grow and thrive and stay, so we don't have the level of turnover that we're seeing, and that we're enticing people to work in environments that are great places to work for them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So for those of you joining with us, share your stories as well, right? Please fold into this conversation. So find your chat button. If you have a story to pop in of how you've experienced compassionate leadership, or maybe how you've been a compassionate leader with the team that you're leading and connecting with, we'd love to see your stories pop up in the chat as well. So thank you for sharing those stories, Penny. I'll share another one of mine of, in my past work of working with a senior living operator, I have a mentor, and I'll still call her a mentor because that's what compassionate leaders are as well, right? Is you stay connected to them far beyond that job or that role that brought you together. But it's something, I think another thing about compassionate leadership, and we'll talk about this in a minute, of some people sometimes assume that to be a compassionate leader means you're weak or you're too nice, right? But I'll share the opposite here of this person always challenged me and I love her to death, but every time that I knew I was going to have a conversation with her, I dreaded it, for the reason of she was fantastic at asking the right questions. So when I came to her, whether we were just talking about, what I was accomplishing, or if I had a specific challenge or barrier, I knew that I was going to be on the hot seat of questions, but they were really good questions, because as a compassionate leader too, I learned through that relationship with her of, it's what we said in the beginning, you're there to help support someone in their growth journey. You're not there to give them the answers. You're not there to hold their hand and tell them what to do, right? So those barrage of questions that I always had to prepare myself for really helped me grow as a leader. And even though I hated them and I hated answering them, I knew that it was necessary. And I developed that through my leadership style as well, with teams that I've connected with in my journey. So yeah.
Oh, I think that's a great example, Laura Ellen. And I think the other thing I love about that example is you bringing up that idea of some people feel that compassionate leadership is kind of that soft leadership style, right? Or shows weakness. And I would say for so many other reasons, that's 180 degrees from what we're talking about. Because I think that one of the elements of compassionate leadership is really communicating things in a very clear, concise way. And I see that as such the opposite of weakness. And just like you were saying too, somebody who is willing to challenge you in that compassionate way, but also clearly and concisely so that you can grow. It's all being done for the right reasons, so that you can grow and develop and have the answers yourself, right? So
that's right.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, Penny, let's jump in maybe to some strategies, right? Because I think we're starting to talk about them already, of how you can build your muscles in your journey of compassionate leadership. So one thing that I'll share is, I am a visual learner and also like connect with like acronyms and things like that, right? A lot of people do. It helps you kind of remember and retain information. So I'm going to share an acronym with you guys today around trying to remember and help yourself as you're on the journey of being a compassionate leader. So the acronym, the word is morale. So when you're thinking about being a compassionate leader, think about one core piece of your job, right, is to engage and support the morale of your team. And we're going to talk about what the letters of morale stand for, so it can help you do that. So the first one is M, right, in morale. And Chris has put a link to this blog post. So if you want to read along, you can. And retain this and refer to it later. But the M and how I look at compassionate leadership and my learning journey stands for mindfulness. So I think in order to really be a compassionate leader, you've got to be present and you have to be aware. And I think one thing that you have to learn how to do, which is so hard, especially in today's environment, is when you're connecting with people, is to pause and be present. And that means you've got to push out several things. You've got to push out what might have happened with that person previously, right? You've got to push that out of your mind and not let that influence or affect what's happening right now and how you're trying to support that person right now. You've also got to push out of your mind other people or other projects, right, that are on your mind, that you're trying to get done in your work, right, your own work. So you've got to push that out so you can be present. And then you've got to push away any personal feelings as well, right? Of how you're feeling about that person or a personal relationship that you might have. And that kind of gets to that, the compassionate leadership as weak or whatnot. You've got to make sure that you are you're being objective and listening and connecting with that person with that positive intent, right, to help them. So mindfulness is so important, and also connects to an important piece of being mindful is also having self-compassion for yourself. So that's a big piece as leaders that we have to keep working on, right? Is putting a lot of pressure on yourself and forgetting to have that compassion in return for yourself. So you're giving so much compassion and you're giving so much to others, but how are you giving that to yourself so that you're balanced and in a right state to continue the way that you're leading? So that's the M. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Penny.
Well, I really love starting with that, because I think that this is all about kind of centering yourself. And I love that you added at the end the self-compassion, because I think that so many times we talk about how we need to sort of give to others, but we can't give anything to others and we can't be present with others unless we do, that cliche term, put your oxygen mask on first, right? And take care of yourself first. And I think probably all of us have experienced, whether personally or professionally, an interaction with someone where someone has made us feel like we're the most important person in the room with them. That's kind of how I feel a mindful interaction is. You can tell when someone is present with you, I think, and when they aren't. And I think it's so important to really make sure that we think about this idea of mindfulness as we're having interactions, conversations, and especially more challenging conversations with our team members.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for adding on to that. And there's a lot of resources out in the world, right, around mindfulness. I know the Pioneer Network offers ongoing webinars, and make sure you check out their website as well. AGE-u-cate has great resources as well within our blogs and other training on cultivating mindfulness for yourself and your team. So the O, so we'll get to the O, and that stands for open communication. And that really takes us again back to this kind versus nice. And Penny, you've already shared it a little bit of, having direct and timely conversation is so important, and an anchor of being a compassionate leader. And that's being kind. Being nice is not having the conversation because you're going to hurt their feelings, right? So that's the difference between kind and nice. You're being kind because you truly care about that person and you want to help them, right? Being nice is just kind of sympathizing with that person and joining them in that feeling of dread and not wanting to address something. So being clear, also transparent when you're communicating with others. So just the essence of open communication. And that's where it does sometimes get cloudy for people of the kind versus nice.
Oh, so much so. And I really think that, this goes back to that idea of this leadership style being strong, because I think that some of us always feel it's easier to be nice. It's much harder to be kind. and to deliver information deliver difficult information in a kind way.
Yeah, that's right. I remember I attended some learning and education sessions, and I'm not going to remember who wrote this book, but the book is called Thanks for the Feedback. And it's really great around having difficult conversations, the importance of having them and how to have them. All of us have opportunity to have those conversations, and it's definitely a key piece of compassionate leadership. And there's a lot of research out there around organizations who put kindness ahead of profit, who weave kindness as part of their culture. And I'll read just a few of those. So one study, which we're happy to share out, says that companies that do that, 89% more likely to have a strong desire to think of new and innovative ideas within their team. And we need that now more than ever, right? To be innovative, to really launch some new ideas through our journey in the last couple of years. It also shared that 6 out of 10 workers say they'd rather have management team help them find meaning in their work than receive a 5% pay increase. That's pretty staggering, right? Especially when we think about recruitment and retention, and people always go to the dollars. But there's some really return on investment when you're thinking about how are we treating people. And it's not just about how are we being nice to people and throwing nice parties or giving nice things. It's how are we being kind in the ways that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because I've seen similar statistics and research done about that idea of people in the workforce today wanting meaning with their jobs, and that it's not always about the salary, but that they really want to do something and be a part of something that's meaningful. And I think that this really goes along with that idea. And I think we really need to think about that, of how we're creating those meaningful experiences for someone. But it really all, again, breaks down to getting to know people and what their desires are, what they're interested in, what they want their work environment to be like.
That's right. And that really leads us to the R in morale of recognition and the thought that one size doesn't fit all. I think a lot of times we tend to recognize others in the way that we appreciate recognition rather than truly understanding how that person likes to be recognized. So if you're with us, I'll ask you maybe to put in the chat an answer of, when's the last time you felt appreciated? Or what are those things that really make you feel the most appreciated? Answering that for yourself is important as a leader, and also asking that question to each person on your team is really important, and not doing recognition as a one size fits all. Sometimes that's more harmful than doing personalized recognition, right? When a person doesn't feel like it's truly connected to who they are or how they've contributed.
This is something that I'm so glad you have in here, Laura Ellen, because it's something that we talk about a lot in the culture change movement. And then personally, I'll tell you that I've thought about this quite a bit in different positions I've had, as a leader. I think it's so important that you do ask everyone on your team, or you figure out how everyone on your team wants to be recognized. And that's a big ask. And I realize that. But I think that it's so true what you said about these group recognitions, that one size fits all can be more harmful, because you think that you're doing something great and doing these group recognitions of people. But if people don't like to be recognized that way, they're actually leaving an event or some sort of ceremony by thinking that they weren't recognized at all, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that we really need to be very conscious and intentional about this one.
Yeah, I agree. And the best way to figure it out is just to ask people, right? Sometimes we forget about the simplicity of just connecting with people and having conversation. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I would also, make sure that people hear too, that there's a lot of people out there that do not like public recognition. So again, yes, I see that in a chat. Public admiration can be off-putting. And that is so true for some people, Andrew. You're exactly right.
That's right. That's right. All right. So that's going to lead us to the A. And that's the big scary A sometimes that we have of accountability. That word sometimes just puts fear right, in a leader's heart and other people's minds of accountability, because it can be scary. But one thing that I learned as a leader is thinking about accountability of partners versus parents. So really thinking about the idea of creating accountability partnerships within your teams. You two people that you're supporting peer to peer, having accountability partners. So how could you kind of think about that, of weaving that transition into the culture of the team that you're with? And so, I think when you're doing that, you're empowering that person to be accountable for themselves, but also you're creating a culture of the teamwork, of you're accountable to yourself, you're accountable to me as your leader, of course, you're accountable to the business, of course, but also to your peers. We're all in this together. We've heard that term a lot through the last couple of years, but creating these partnerships, it doesn't mean that you're creating a group of best friends. It means you're creating this culture of appreciation of how everyone is contributing, and also a genuine display of respect for each other. And then that is what internally motivates people to do what they say they're going to do, or to do what they're asked to do, or parts of what they're coming up with of how they can contribute to the team. So thoughts on that, Penny? The thought of accountability partners?
Well, I'll tell you interesting story, and it has nothing to do with aging services, but my 28-year-old son, in his first job out of college, it was a position where they had unlimited vacation. It was an IT company. So unlimited vacation. And he thought, wow, this is going to be like so cool, right? I can take off whenever I want to. But of course, that model is based on that mutual accountability. It is based on that partnership model where you have to work with your team members to figure out that time you're going to take, to ensure that before you take time off, you have everything done that you need to have done. And it was such a wonderful experience for him to have on his first job, because it showed he felt empowered. You're exactly right. He felt respected, that he could be a part of sort of managing this workflow and their responsibilities. And he learned what teamwork meant. And you're exactly right. It doesn't mean that you're best friends and that partnership with everyone on your team, but that you're all accountable for the same sort of thing. You have the same reasons to be there. You're all accountable. You all have a role. So you empower people and you elevate them in one sense, and you also level the playing field in another. And so I think that's a beautiful example. And to facilitate that as a compassionate leader really takes a lot of skill, because it's not a model that we have traditionally used in the workplace, for the past however many years since industrialization, right? It's not a model we have traditionally used. So we have to unlearn some of those things that maybe we are used to, but this model is beautiful when it works.
That's right. Yeah. And one of those things that we have to unlearn is just the notion of like annual reviews, where you save up all of your feedback for someone till the moment where they are either getting or not getting a raise, right? So it's also, accountability partnerships are, unhitching the dollars to what you're accomplishing, right? Because that's not why you're doing this. And having that trust in people that you hired them for the right reasons, right? And you hired them because you were confident that they could do the job. And it's also, accountability partnerships for me is not saying that you as a leader are out of the hot seat. You've got to do this well, you've got to have routine and ongoing conversation around how people are doing, what they're accomplishing, how it connects to the larger vision of your department or organization. So it does take a lot of work, and that you're not immune to it, that you've got to have an accountability partner too, for your own self, which really leads us to the L of morale, of leading by example, right? So that's the L of leading by example. So if we take that of an accountability partnership as leading by example, it's you opening up yourself. Maybe it's somebody on your team that you're leading, that's your accountability partner, that you're having conversation with as well, about what you're accomplishing. I'll share, in my previous role, we did something which I think really helped with accountability among our team and for myself as well, of we would send out at the end of every week a document called the 515. Have you heard of that, Penny?
Mm-mm.
The 515, it's meant to say it's 5 questions and should only take you 15 minutes to complete it. And the 5 questions are really just kind of helping you reflect on what you've accomplished that week, and help you reflect on, what you're going to do and what your goals are for the week ahead. And what we did among my team is it's how we kind of created some accountability among ourselves, because you list, what did I accomplish this week, and what am I gonna do for next week? Where were the places I felt challenged, and what's something that maybe helped me with that challenge? So those were examples of some of the questions, but we sent them to each other, including me as a leader of the team. I sent my 515 to everybody on my team, and everybody on the team sent it to everybody else, so we could all stay connected with what we're accomplishing as a team. So I think that's a good example of leading by example. And there's a lot of other examples that you can come up with. Another is, a lot of people say rolling up your sleeves, right? Doing and helping with the work that you're expecting of other people, is another great way of leading by example.
Yeah, and I think that we can never appreciate enough as leaders how much people truly watch what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're interacting. That piece is so important. And so I encourage all of us. And one thing I just want to say here is we can all be leaders too, even if, that's not necessarily reflected in our title. And I think it's important to realize that when we talk about this, because we can all be leaders in the way we do things and modeling different things, modeling language, modeling, what it takes to care and support somebody. We can all be leaders in that realm, and we can all be examples for others. And I think we really need to appreciate that and help to foster that environment too. So this one I think is so important when we talk about compassionate leadership.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I'll bring us to the E, which is the last letter in the word morale, just to kind of keep in your head when you think about compassionate leadership. But the E is empowerment. And this really comes back to those questions of how you can help people feel more empowered. So it's really the concept of asking the right questions instead of giving the right answers. So really, as a compassionate leader, in my mind, it's really trying to transition yourself as a coach. You're really there to help coach people through situations, to help them come up with their own answers, through really great question asking. So we share in this blog that Chris linked over, 4 intentions around questions, and I'll share them real briefly, but your questions, right? And all of your questions are meant to, like I said, help that person think about the situation, and also help kind of minimize, if you will, of sharing all the details of a situation, and really getting to the heart of what you're going to do about it, right? What's most important about that situation, and then getting us more into problem solving and coming up with solutions of what's your next step. So the first is, right, you're really trying to build understanding with the intention to uncover what's important, right? So an example might be of asking someone, what matters to you most right now connected to this situation? Really, that's going to help someone really cut through all of the minutia and the itty bitty details to, okay, what's the most important for me? What's going to matter? What matters to me most right now? The next one is setting direction to shift the focus from what's wrong to what's possible. Again, kind of really building towards what are the solutions we can come up with? What are the next wise actions we can take? So really thinking about, what do you want to happen next? Asking some of those questions. How will you know if you're successful, right, in overcoming this challenge or completing this next project? The third is shaping options to foster self-directed thinking. So maybe you could ask questions of, what have you tried? What have you tried already, right, to help with the situation or to accomplish this task? And then the last one is to really define actions for solution-oriented focus, right? So maybe you're asking, like, what data or information do you think you need to really be able to make the best decision? Or you're asking, how can I help you, right? Trying to get to the heart of, what is it that you came to me for, right? How can I help you in this moment? So it's really hard. I think this is probably one of the biggest areas that I grew and continue to grow in my journey to stop myself from telling the person what I think they should do and to ask a question to help that person think for themselves, right? That's the intention there.
It's so true. I think that, that's the easy route, right? Is to just give the answer.
Yeah.
Right? That's the easy way to go. Again, this is why compassionate leadership isn't necessarily the soft or easy way out. It's really being so intentional about really thinking of what your role is to help that person find the right answer. And those questions you gave, Laura Ellen, what I was thinking about is really to determine what's most important, that's so true, and how not to be as overwhelmed so that they can move forward too. So there's so many different parts of that. And this one, it makes me think, I had a team member one time, and the way she used kind of her supervisory time with me, we had sort of the, every week, the 1 hour supervision. And I come from the world of social work, and maybe that's where that's from. But she ended up writing out this list every week. And this list probably had at least 15 things on it. I mean, you wonder how we were going to get through it in an hour, sort of thing. But it would have been very easy for me to answer the questions on this list. Sometimes it wouldn't have been, because sometimes, and I think this is what we need to realize and be okay with, is sometimes we don't have the answers either. And that's okay, because we know those answers might be in the person who's coming to us. But we would go through this list, and I realized that what I was doing was really to help her. That was my role, was to help her find her own answers, because then in time, the list started to decrease. But the funny thing is that we haven't worked together in, 12, 13 years now, and we're now friends. And she still comes to me sometimes when we get together for coffee with a list.
Yeah.
Because it was so helpful for her how we kind of went about this process. And it helps her to remember what she wants to talk with me about. That's why she does the list still. But the process just was really helpful. And it's not that I have any, secret ingredients to help, but it's just that process of conversation, of really kind of helping somebody cut to the chase. We all need that sometime. It doesn't matter, where you are in a leadership position. We all need that in the course of relationships.
That's right. That's right. And I love you saying that, a process. And when I think about what you just shared, also patience, right, as a leader, because I love you saying of through that process, right, and through connecting with that person, her list got shorter,
Mhm.
which meant your work was working, right? Your coaching and your connection with her was working because she was starting to resolve her own problems to where that list was shorter of what she was needing your coaching support with. So that I love that story.
Well, and especially because all of this can sound overwhelming sometimes, right? It can sound very time consuming, but I think just like so many other things, if we're pretty intentional in putting time in on relationship building and development on the front end with our team, then we actually are creating kind of this process and self-confidence with people in this team that we actually maybe don't have to put as much time into as things go on. I'm not saying to back off, but I'm just saying that, just think about that, how sometimes the time might be, really high here, but over time it all levels out. So
that's right. And yeah, this is definitely a journey. So I would encourage anyone listening in to think about that acronym of morale and just take one, right? Take one and give some things a try. So, whichever one spoke to you most or where you think you have most opportunity, or maybe it's a low-hanging fruit where you're like, hey, I think I'm already doing this. Let me do more of it, right? Sometimes that's helpful as well to really build up, like you said, Penny, your confidence in being that compassionate leader. And I'll go back to that accountability partners of, and also being open, right? Of creating that partnership with people on your team. Let them know this is something that you're working on, right? And let them know what it is you're trying to do better with, so that they can hold you accountable. They can give you feedback and how you're growing together as a team, right? So really bring people in. Don't feel like you have to be on this journey alone, because a core piece of compassionate leadership is you're building other leaders, right? I always love that saying of, I really feel like my success is measured on the success of others, of how you're supporting others, right? So you can do the same work along with other people on your team, because we all have opportunities to be a leader, like you shared as well. Penny, no matter where we fit into an organization or where we are in our personal lives. So that'll bring me to a question for you, Penny, of, with all of your connection through Pioneer Network, what recommendations do you have for folks with us today? Thought leaders, resources, books or articles, maybe webinars coming up, or things that you've attended in the past where they can continue to build these muscles. Anything pop up for you?
Sure. Well, I'm going to give some examples that are really pertinent to the world of aging, senior living as well. And the first one I want to talk about is we have two leaders in the world of aging that have done some great work on compassion. And that's Mary Vivian Tellis-Nyack. And I can make sure that I put some of these resources or give them to you so you can send them out, because I'm probably not going to be able to chat and talk fast enough. Sure. But Marion and Vivian, it's a husband and wife team, and they actually did a bunch of research on compassion. And I think this is a great way to start. In 2016, they published a book, and it's called Return of Compassion to Healthcare. And you can actually find this on Pioneer Network's website too. But it really gives people the why behind the need, desire, and even usefulness of compassion. So I think this is a great book to start off with. And then there's two others I want to highlight. One is, these are two very compassionate leaders that I've had the opportunity not only to work with, but also to see grow. And the first is Cateau, C-A-T-E-A-U. And he is the CEO of AGE-Roads, which is a senior living organization that's based in the Atlanta area. And probably he practices compassionate leadership and has taught me so much. He practiced compassionate leadership in such a, how do I want to say this? Beautiful way in his organization. And he wrote a book actually during the pandemic called Brushfire. And Brushfire isn't about compassionate leadership, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm recommending it, because it comes through. You see Compassionate Leadership in Action through Deke's book. And so for those people who work in the world of aging services and specifically in senior living, this is a great, compelling book that will just show you and guide you in a compassionate leadership style along the way. The second person that wrote a book that I want to talk about is Jill Vitale-Awesome. Jill is the CEO of Christian Living Communities, and she was the former CEO of the Eden Alternative. And she wrote a book called Disrupting the Status Quo of Senior Living. And again, this book is filled with real life tips on being a compassionate leader. And one of the things that Jill and Deke have in common is this idea of accountability, the idea of empowerment, and the idea of something you talked about, Laura Ellen, a few times, that this is a journey, that there's no end point in being a compassionate leader because it requires continual growth. And I think that this comes out really strongly in these two books. So all three of these books are ones I would recommend. And of course, I think that one of the things we need to look at is that there are so many different podcasts and articles that deal with compassionate leadership that I think that we all need to find something that resonates with us personally. There's no one size fits all. And I think that, you have even showed this with the acronym morale, of really looking at one thing that really resonates with you. That's the place to start. I mean, you can't do all of these things at once, but I bet there's one thing that really resonates with us, and then go explore it deeply. Also, just to say that compassionate leadership is a term that not everybody uses. So there are some great books on leadership. There are some great articles on leadership, and maybe there's one thing that you can get out of that. But if you really want to explore this idea of leadership more and how to be the best leader that you can be and that you want to be, I would just start looking around, and you'll see various examples everywhere.
Yeah, those are great resources, Penny. Thank you so much for sharing those. And we put a few of those that we could go grab in the chat, and we'll be sure to include them in the email that we send out with the recording of this conversation. We just have a few more minutes left. If you have any questions for Penny or about compassionate leadership, please send those in through the chat or the Q&A. But Penny, before we go, I do want you to share with folks about the upcoming Pioneer Network Conference, because I think this is going to be a theme that will resonate throughout with that conference. I know AGE-u-cate is going to be there. We'll be sharing a lot of resources about our program, Compassionate Touch, which is one component where you can leverage that as a leader as you're building that leadership skill, right? Helping people grow and learn is a core component too of being a compassionate leader. But Penny, tell people about the conference, and I hope that we can share in the chat, Chris, how you can sign up to join us in Denver in July.
Yes, and we're so excited to be able to gather again. It's been 3 years since our last conference in 2019. And so we'll be in Denver, Colorado, July 27th through 30th. And I think that Chris is going to be putting the link up there so that you can go to our conference page for all the information. So, our conference name is Pioneering a New Culture of Aging. But one of the things that we're really focusing on this year is well-being for all. And we always talk about well-being for residents of senior living communities and care communities. But one of the things we're really doing a more intentional focus on is the well-being of your team, the well-being of staff members. So because of that, this idea of compassionate leadership is coming through in all different ways. It's a focus in our general sessions. It's a focus in a lot of our concurrent sessions as well. Laura Ellen, as you said, with some of our partners, our former exhibitors are called solution partners, and AGE-u-cate is one of them. You're doing so much on this idea of compassion too, and we see other partners doing that. But also, I will say, just our conference environment is one that I think, based on so many of the things we talked about today is that idea of compassionate leadership. And here's just one example. From the beginning, when Pioneer Network had a conference, we never put titles on our name tags. Instead, we put a person's name and where they're from. And what's the idea behind that? To level that playing field, because we know that it doesn't matter what our position is. It doesn't matter whether we're a family member or a resident, an elder, or a professional in this field. We're all coming together and we all have value. We all have information to offer, and we all have the ability to learn from each other. And so I think right there, we kind of set the stage for this conversation of compassionate leadership, because what we want to ensure, and this is why Pioneer Network exists, we want to create places, create environments that are the best places, not only for people to live, but for people to work, for people to come to, for all of us to be a part of in our community. So we're so excited about the conference. Please go to the conference page if you have an interest in signing up. We would love to see you there. If you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me personally as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll echo Penny. I know AGE-u-cate is really excited through conversation with Penny and others that are planning the conference of what's going to be different. So what I really appreciate about Pioneer Network is they're coming out of the time where we weren't gathering together as people and really being thoughtful around how to come together differently and better. So we are so excited for the solution partners. We're so excited for the Experience Center, where you're not just going to talk to partners, you're going to experience some of their products. You're going to be able to put yourself in an experience to see how this can help you maybe with some challenges that you have. So I think they're being really innovative. We're so excited to be part of it. And we hope, to see you there. But we're at 3 o'clock. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll be sure to send out this recording, send the great resources that Penny shared with us. And Penny, I can't thank you enough for this hour conversation. I feel like we just started talking and we could just talk for days.
Thank you, Laura Ellen. It's been great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.